All right, so Sid, how would I introduce you? I mean, Sid Justice, Sid Vicious, Psycho Sid. Which Sid name did you like the best?
I like Sid Vicious the best. It's just the first one I came up with. Actually, it was it was given to me as a nickname as a kid. I'd come back from a vacation from Jamaica. I was just a teenager, and my friends got me a T-shirt saying Sid Vicious with Mickey Mouse in the middle of it. And so when I was doing the Lord Humongous character, Japan didn't like that character, and they wanted another name. And I was just moving territories from continental Memphis, and so I came up with that character, Sid Vicious.
Speaking of vicious, we have to talk about the Vicious Circle podcast that's coming out in September. What can you tell us about it? Can you kind of let us know a little, like, behind the scenes what this podcast is going to be like?
This is the thing I'm right now just myself studying podcasts, and I've gotten Steve Joyner has helped me on this, and he sent me a copy of, say, Booth Pictures, and going to send me I'm going to get a copy of a couple others. Really, when I see these things, I'm going to try to do something a little different. And I haven't seen enough to say how much different it's going to be, if that makes any sense to you.
For sure, yeah.
But I am going to try to do things where I'm sure other people are doing them. You know, I want to, of course, talk about myself some, but that's not really first and foremost. I wanted also, I think I said to someone before too, I was talking to a guy named Jerry Bossick who runs the World Class organization there in Oklahoma, which I know he's trying really hard. Might have like someone like that on sometime. You know, I want to have some fun with it too, and you know, bring on people like Bruno, who was my first roommate, my first manager, my first friend in the business, and things like that. If I can talk him into it, and you know, just again, just also I want to do it where I don't want anything to be fabricated. You know, I'm not going to explain myself a lot of times. Like now, a lot of people don't realize this broadcast that me and you guys are doing tonight. Mm-hmm. Actually, it's the second time we tried this, because the first time we tried this, I asked y'all what Ribby on the Square was, and y'all didn't know. And when I told you, I guess your nerves got so messed up that you were so dumb acting, you both started vomiting, and you started vomiting until just today for being so stupid. It's almost like a Dave Chappelle comic deal. You know, when the guys are so stupid, their heads explode. That's exactly what happened to y'all when I asked that question. So, guys, that's what. If anybody want to know about their podcast, that was a real deal one time for them. But no, really, I want to just do that too. I want to have a little fun. I don't want people to think I'm always serious all the time, but I do want to have some fun at the same time, get across some things, and try to stay on the square with things.
For sure. I mean, we're going to give out the links when you guys launch, I believe, early September. So make sure everybody listening will tune into the Vicious Circle podcast for sure.
Wild from Canada, a friend of Steve Joyner's is coming down this weekend. We're going to take the first 3 episodes.
Oh, great.
So it's already going to be, has started up this coming weekend.
Well, I remember reading to where you said you weren't so much a fan when you started wrestling, when you got into it, that you kind of, you know, did it like any other job for the money, right? That you weren't maybe necessarily as passionate as other wrestlers. But can you tell us maybe how you decided to get into the sport?
I wasn't passionate. It's just I wasn't familiar with it, like a lot of people. No, I mean, when I go back to the guy that probably means the most to me in my career, Eddie Gilbert, you know, he wrestled, his brother wrestled, his father wrestled, and I could see the passion through him like that. But I also developed a passion for just being around people like Eddie Gilbert, who was second generation. You know, Robert Fuller, who was one of my first bookers, he was second generation. You know, so it wouldn't have didn't have the passion; it just hadn't informed about it because I wasn't a fan of it. But to answer your question, how I got into it was I was dabbling with the USFL Football League, and then met Randy Savage and Lanny Poffo and Harley Davidson, who turned out to be Hillbilly Jim, and Tracy Smothers was a local guy there that all worked in the Memphis territory, and they've seen me at the Coliseum one night with a promoter of a country music singer named Eddie Bond, who was locally in Memphis, and the guy was trying to scam me, and they said, "Hey man, if you're interested in wrestling, get away from that guy. and we'll put you in touch with someone. And then they put me in touch with Tojo Yamamoto, and that's where I started going to wrestling school.
What are your thoughts on like the business today? Do you still watch professional wrestling today, or is it something you just kind of catch every now and then?
I have watched a little bit, and the reason is because, I was told that they were taking, resumes or applications for a writing team, and I heard some of the names thrown around. And so me and a friend of mine named Barry Norman, who's a writer, we linked our names together and sent it in. I actually had my attorney and their attorney. So they have it. So I have started watching some just in case they were, become interested in anything that we've talked about me in WWE over the last 4 or 5 years. And watching it is, it's not, we can easily say it's not what it used to be. Of course, the only wrestling I know that's on TV is WWE. And then I hear about this new organization that's going to be in the month of October, one on TNT or Turner Network on one of those channels. If you're interested in seeing that, of course, your answer probably what I'm watching. I'm not watching as much of it because it's changed a little bit itself. That's UFC. Changing from Fox to ESPN is a little harder to watch unless you get that ESPN Plus. And I am going actually tomorrow to set myself up while I have the internet here. I've not had to use it before, so getting that, I might do the extra $5 to get ESPN, but it's not as as popular as it was a few years back either as well. Now I'm watching that now, a lot of baseball. I love baseball, I love college football, I love college basketball. So I keep in touch with it. And the thing is, this is something too I want to do in a podcast or it's just some type of format. Is I'm pretty good at calling these things. Like the year the Chicago Cubs won the World Series, I actually called it from the playoffs the year before. And I actually had a bet with 2 different people that, can say, yeah, he really said that. So that's going to be fun, too, is I'm pretty good at picking things on sports.
Nice.
Now, I was wrong last year in college basketball. I think like the rest of America, thinking Duke was going to do it, but they didn't do it.
We've all heard the stories of your, sports growing up. Is there anything, we are a wrestling, podcast. We talk a lot about wrestling, but what can you tell us about like the sports you played growing up and like, do you have any regrets not going further in those sports versus wrestling, or are you happy with kind of how everything worked out?
I'm happy with how things worked out, but no, man, if I said I had no regret, I'd be lying. There was, just the thing is, and I tell kids, I told my children this, especially my oldest son, when you're growing up and you're already tall and lean like that, you're going to be a late bloomer. So, like, first sport I was really decent at was baseball, and then I really fell in love with that. Then as time went on, really fell for boxing, and then after that would be football, and then really as a late bloomer, I really enjoyed basketball. And what was happening was going through these growth spurts. Then say just the simplest things like adding running bleachers to your day really got me where I got a good vertical and things like that. I always had a good glide and vertical from just from elementary, just from whatever it was the day they had all those contests for kids. I can't think of the name of that, but I always excelled in those things. And when I went out for the Memphis Showboats to the USFL, that's 3 things that I really stood out was I had the longest broad jump, the highest vertical leap, and I think I set a record for bench press 225, 33 reps.
Wow.
So, and then I had a 4.842, and this was all at 330. So, that's pretty good. And that's what they judge you on. That's why I made it to the last cut with that football league, football team, just because of those 3 principles.
For sure, yeah.
But I would have liked to box. And I would have liked to. And one thing I really wish our state would have had was, freestyle wrestling. I really would have enjoyed that too. But I would have liked to probably play baseball, and I probably would have liked to, it feels good to be heavyweight champion of the world in boxing.
Yeah, for sure. Sid, you dominated pretty much, it seems like, all sports growing up, but, a good friend of the show, Lanny Poffo, we know the story that I believe Randy Savage and Lanny talked you into doing it. Can you tell us how they convinced you maybe to leave all the other sports behind and join pro wrestling?
Well, what it was in that conversation when they saw me with that gentleman, that Bogus promoter, they were talking to me about it then. And what really was sealing the deal for me was, in football deal, I'd already been captain of that team. The only future it looked like I had if I went to college and tried to get a couple of years under my belt for the NFL. And my wife was pregnant at the time, and the money they said that I would be making was going to be comparable to money that was offered in the NFL. And this was just, local wrestling like Memphis, where that was, pretty good to a kid that just came off a tractor off the farm. So it was an easy decision to get into wrestling because I could do it in a shorter time frame. Absolutely. And that's why it sounds calculated and cold, but it was just business. And it was a business decision to really to give my family a better life.
Yeah, absolutely. As you've been in the business for a long time. You shared the locker room with just almost everybody. Some of the biggest names in professional wrestling. Were there, everyone wants to know about, kind of like who you got along with, who you didn't get along with. Were there anybody in the locker room that you were just excited to work with, and some that maybe you weren't so excited to work with?
Well, there was always a list of guys like you always enjoyed. For me, working with was Shawn Michaels, Sting, Vader. Bigelow was one of my favorite. Undertaker was fun to a degree, but that gimmick, it wasn't always a great match. And those guys like that. Then and the things like one of my best memories in a men's eight-man tag was me, Flair, and I think Arn and Harley Race against JYD, Lex, Sting, and forget the other partner. Maybe it was just a six-man, but got to see Harley Race really do his stuff, and actually he really stole the show. It was a small venue, but him and JYD, we know JYD be a great guy and everything. He's a horrible worker, and for for Harley to come up with a spot that perfectly for JYD is in that spot where JYD would fall into his nutsack. But the timing of it maybe I don't think anyone had better timing or as good as timing as Harley Race. So those were fun times like that. As far as not really being locked in with anyone, I can't say, not really anyone particularly. Like I do remember, like what was a struggle for me to watch sometimes in the business was there was a lot of names. I'll use one for like Disco Inferno, who was just a idiot. Where they would come to him. Arn, who was, in my opinion, one of the best finish guys in the business. When I first met Arn in WCW, I said to myself, this guy's got to run the business one day, or at least be the best finish man in the business. He had so many finishes that were so cool and so good, made sense and stuff like that. But I've seen people like Disco Inferno just mess up a finish by not wanting to participate the way it's supposed to be done. Say, instead of just doing a simple finish like Arn or somebody would suggest to him, he would say, well, can we bump the referee and bring it up? And just, I remember saying to him, just shut up and do what you're told. Yeah. So it's people like that really got to my skin, and then I think one of the most aggravating times in the locker room was when Perry Saturn came up to me, and it was a bunch of people in the locker room, and they were trying to sign this petition to get a union started or something started to get back Vince Russo and Ed Ferraro back at booking, because when they were booking, people like Perry and those guys, Dean Malenko and and I can't think of even Disco Inferno, but some of those guys are great guys. Lenny and Lanny or something like that. I can't remember those guys, but they were good guys, but they were getting pushed. It didn't push really in the wrong way, but I remember them trying to sign a petition to get that done, and I took Perry. I said, man, you remember what happened to the last people that tried this? It was those Killer B guys, and they never got a job again. I said, now, get that out of my fucking face, Yeah. And so those are really only a few times and things like that. And there were probably a hand more of those that you just didn't want to witness. But for the most part, really, the locker room is a lot of fun. Everybody's laughing. I tell you, one of the funniest guys is Kevin Nash. It's always funny to watch, be at a television taping when he's there, especially when new guys show up. He's a lot funnier than anyone would ever imagine. And listen to him doing commentating for some of these things, it's just hysterical.
Now, Sid, you mentioned Harley Race. Unfortunately, recently he passed away. Do you have any other, maybe a fun story or something about Harley working with him?
Well, I got a chance to. He was doing and it really was a really well ran show when they had their own deal. Him and Axe, Kurt Henning's father, Axe Henning, whatever his real name was, and then there was a bunch of people there. They had Greg Valentine, they had a monster truck with his name on it. They were doing the series and series of television tapings and being around him for those tapings, and really got to understand the business side of him, because when Harley's a quiet guy. I first introduced him when he was managing Vader, so that's really when I first met him, remember seeing him, as world champion. To me, that's the only thing I could really remember about wrestling is him being really the world champion. So that's maybe why I levitate back to him or gravitate towards him. So, but now just being around him like that and then being that match with him, I can say I was in a match with Harley Race.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you are one of, if not the best big men in the business. Do you see yourself as one of the best as well, or do you kind of rank yourself somewhere else?
No, I mean, I would be stupid to say I didn't. And then this is the thing is, guys, and again, I'm not making any things up or stuff like that, but when you look at my career, even the beginning stages of it, even as Lord Humongous, I was put on in a position to draw a little money. Of course, it was Continental, and then my first run as Skyscrapers. We know that the tag teams really aren't the main draw in the business, but I think we did pretty well as a tag team. And then when I came back from my injury, of course, I came back as my lung surgery as a full horseman into some single stuff with Sting in there. So then I'm legitimately what I consider being on top at that point. Then it just stays on top from Sid Justice and then back to Sid Vicious again in WCW, and then back on top of Psycho Sid and actually two Psycho Sids, one spelled with a P and one with an S. I won't go into all that right now, but stayed on top on those two deals, and then came back on top Sid Vicious and WCW before I finished my career. So I don't think many people, guys, can say they were on top almost their whole career. And that maybe might be what the difference to me is. Now, as far as big guys like the Giant and Elegante and Andre and the Big Show, those are novelties. They're not really, what's going to draw your houses every night for you. Mm-hmm. And that's a little bit of difference as far as me and those guys. I wasn't a novelty. I wasn't 7 foot. And then there was a lot of things that came with my package besides just appearance. I worked really hard on my interviews. I worked hard on making things believable in the ring and stuff like that. And it was really lucky to have a lot of great dance partners to go with that career, and that helps too. And then being in the right place at the right time. So I think as far as people in this business, I think I've done as much as anyone has.
Oh, for sure. Now, Sid, you've been in the WCW and the WWE off and on and back and forth, it seemed. But did you like one over the other? And maybe who was more difficult to deal with, Vince or Eric Bischoff? What would you say?
Well, in both companies, I had different. In WCW, there was an array of different people that were in, like Vince's shoes there. We had Dusty Rhodes. We had Ole Anderson. We had Ed Bischoff. We had Bill Watts. I was in talks with Bill Watts just a week or two before he finished up. I was coming back. WCW by far was the better company to work for. It was a real company, and they treated you like real people. Now the adventure to Vince was, really was an ego deal. It's pretty much stupid to go there the first time, leaving guaranteed money for, a handshake. But I believed in myself enough to do that to where it did pay off. But working for Vince is working like almost like, like Carnival in comparison to WCW. And then as far as you got two different bosses, kind of bosses. You got, I think Vince is, and I think it proves not just Vince, a lot of people, but I call it vindictive booking of bookers, meaning they'll book things vindictively, even though it's not good for the business. Where Eric didn't do that. Eric was he was a cooler boss. It was easy for him to be a cooler boss, having Turner as the bankroll, but he definitely, of all people working for, is the coolest guy to work for. Now, I respected and enjoyed working with Ole Anderson as probably as much as anybody in the beginning, because he was a real good tool for me too to learn the business. And I thought I learned, I was learning a lot from him, but when it came down to it, really just learned really how to get heat, how to keep heat, and be credible. And then later on you learn things from like Pat Patterson, which not a lot of things, but him and Vince both taught me a lot of things, simple things. And with Vince, he just told me one time, and it stuck with me forever. He said, Sid, if it's negative, you just don't do it. So I try to remember that even in every little match or every spot that I get myself in. And that usually seems to work out. And that's what, I don't know if you guys are finding this out or what your situation is usually the simple things in this business are what works the best. Mm-hmm. And we can stick with the simple things and then dress them up really good. We'll probably have a pretty cool little deal. You
touched on this just a little bit, but you've talked about in interviews before that you felt like the only real mistake you made in your career was when you didn't sign with WCW in '99, which would have given you that huge lump sum right away. Do you ever think back like how different your career would have been if you had signed with WCW instead of WWE?
No, I really don't. I don't think of things like that because, again, I was a wrestling fan. I got into the business. So when I looked at it, I can't remember exactly how much I made that stint with Vince. It wasn't near as much as what he promised it would be like. I did get some really good payoffs, though. So I don't regret it. Again, I got to do something there I would have never got to do anywhere else, and that's really draw money. See what you're really responsible for. I mean, when you're put in that position there with that company, it really tests and says, okay, you're either this or you're not this. And more times than not, I think I was that. And when given the chance, to do it. I think the only time I failed in the WWE or the WWF was the time I came in for the first run, the Psycho Sid MVP. And I think everyone knows at that time I was term I use, I was on the whipping post. I had left Vince under my own conditions and didn't want to listen to any more lies. And actually I came back only under him calling me and bringing me in. So, it was, I knew what was ahead for me. But after that, I think that really what probably solidifies my career more than anything. That no one does that to Vince and then comes back and gets on the whipping post and then gets off, literally worked myself off the whipping post to be world champion and sit at that time indoor tennis records every building I was going to every night. So to me, that makes me the biggest winner.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, there's been lots of talks in wrestling about money and guaranteed money, if you will. Lots of people credit Hall and Nash for getting guaranteed money in the business, but you have a story about how you also got guaranteed money. Can you tell us about how that came about?
Well, first of all, guaranteed money was first given by WCW, and they gave everybody guaranteed money, just about. Even I think the minimum contract in WCW at one time was $104,000 a year. I think that comes to $2,000 a week. And so I think that was the minimum at one time. Now with Vince, when I came back to Psycho Sid the second time after a neck injury, I won't go into the whole story, but I really was interested in coming back. I had taken a job working for an ag company out of Fresno, California called Custom Timicides, and I hadn't told anyone that. And so Vince calls me, emergency, you do a couple of shows. I do a couple of shows, and then I go to the pay-per-view thing too. And they said, man, we need to come back full time. And I said, man, I can't come back full time. And told him why. I just said, man, I said, Vince, things are good right now. You and I get along, but as soon as I say something, and I will say something and will aggravate you, and then I'm going to do the whip and post again. And I said, wearing a dress, were not the exact words I said. I said, but now if you give me guaranteed money, I said, I could wear a dress every night and be happy with it. And he said to me, are you holding me up? I said, no, I'm not holding up. I'm just telling you how I'd feel safe. And then I think, because what he offered me at first was, well, we'll say guarantee you $500,000 a year, and then we'll pay you on a night deal. And at the end of the year, if you don't make 500, we'll write you one check, make enough for it. And I said, no, I'm not interested in that. So he ended up giving me the guarantee deal. And I think Vader and I think Johnny B. Good or whatever, Mark Merrill had got guaranteed contracts, but they were on that one like he had offered me that night to night at the end of the year to make up for it. I don't think they were on like I was getting guaranteed money every week. I think that was the difference of the two types of contracts. And then I think he started offering people contracts after that, but they never, what Vince offered me 1 year, Eric offered me 4 times that in 1 year. He actually offered me in 1 year what Vince was offering me for 4 years. So that's the difference in pay scale.
Wow. Now, you obviously, one of the things that everyone remembers about Sid is the powerbomb. And how did you decide that that's what you wanted as your finishing maneuver? And what makes a good powerbomb? We see a lot of people do it, and I don't think that anybody has done a better powerbomb than you.
Well, first how it was given to me was by a guy named David. I think his wrestling name here in Memphis was Motley. And before I went to Continental, they had a little training school downtown Memphis. It was right down the street from the gym I was working out at. And so I'd go by there in the afternoons, knowing I was getting ready to go to Continental for my first real territory. And David said, hey, man, I've seen this finish called Powerbomb. And he showed it to me. And, first it just wasn't one of those things that really just clicked in my head. But because I said, man, it could be awkward with heavier people, So when I went to Continental, I was suggested to use it. And Robert wanted me to use what they were using, Lord Humongous was using before, the Cobra Clutch and the Shamaki, whatever it's called. So I did that. I actually changed it up just a little bit. And then when Eddie Gilbert came in as a booker, he didn't know what finish I was using. So this is where I tell people that you have to be an opportunist, and that's one of the things that probably helped me get over more than anything was being an opportunist. And so I took the opportunity that night at Botville Auditorium at the not the fairgrounds, but the Botville Auditorium Civic Center at Birmingham, where we changed venues to try to get that was their original venue that Continental was in. So we went there. I had my match that night, and I used the power bomb. And I heard someone in the front row said, "That guy's dead." And then I knew right then. I said, "This is something I need to stick with."
Nice. All right, Sid. Going back, I always read different stories about wrestlers in time, and I understand you voluntarily quit the WWF at the time due to disagreements with Warrior and WWF management. Was there any reasoning behind that, or anything you could tell us?
Well, it was just, as I've already said 1,000 times, I'll say it real quick. What it was, it sort of stems back to leaving guaranteed money. And the agreement we had was, he asked me, "Here's the magic wand. What do you want?" And I said, "I want Hogan's spot." He said, "It's yours." He said, "What we're going to do with you for 1 year, you're just going to do TVs and pay-per-views, and that's it. And at WrestleMania, you'll win the world title, and you'll go into your first house show." Well, it wasn't, it seemed like 2 days I was there, and I was already taking the Warriors' place. So things just went the wrong way from day one. And just, again, we get to WrestleMania, things were totally different the way they were supposed to be. So we were at the Royal Rumble, I guess it was, when they booed Hogan, and then we went into the hallway, and Hogan was screaming down the hallway, Vince, "Hey, you planned this," and blah, blah, blah. And really, that wasn't the icebreaker, but it was just enough to say, okay, I can't take this anymore. So I went into Vince's office, and which was just the locker room. I said, "Hey, man, listen, I want to shake your hand. Thanks for the opportunity." But I left it real simple. I said, "I'm not ready for this place." And there's a million reasons that I wasn't. But that was one, too, that I can't be somewhere where a grown man is going to cry about getting booed. That happens in this business, and that's silly to act like that. But it happens to all of us, especially when you're getting that much over, when you start coming down, you're going to get booed. And when you're already outmatched, and that's what another of the issues were, that he was just outmatched with me being in the ring with him, as far as popularity and, two different characters.
Yeah.
And, that was just that simple. And then so that was sort of it right there. And then he promised me, just to stay a little bit towards WrestleMania. And I stayed there for that. And then he said, okay, we're going to make the biggest heel of the business. And my first show being the biggest heel in the business was with the Ultimate Warrior at the Baltimore. And he says, Sid, I'm going to send you in, clothesline. You take a powder, and I'm going to shake the ropes. I said, no, Jim, you'll come in, I'll stop you. I'll send you off. You'll duck my clothesline. You'll give me one clothesline, and then I'll take a powder. And he reached his hands up to the ceiling. It was a small little locker room. And the Ultimate Warrior says, I looked around maybe like someone was filming me like this was a joke. So I went out in the hall, and then they wanted him also to kick out of my finish. So, and then like a DQ or something like that, and you don't want that for a man bit. And it's already, everything's stunk about it. So I told Jack Lance, I said, is this shit real? This guy's in here talking to himself, and he's like, just in a bad spot himself, being in that spot. I said, you tell Vince this. I said, if this is the same fucking finish tomorrow night will be my last night. So you got 24 hours to fix this. So we got the Boston Gardens, same thing, and they can't reach Vince on the phone. So I said, okay, I'm going to do it because I'm here, and I don't want to not do it. So I'm going to do it. And when I go home going, don't you guys call me because I'm not going to answer. And that's exactly what happened. They tried to call him, and my wife called in and said, we're going to get out of this. Enough's enough. And I think that's fair, guys. This is the thing is, if everything was a lie from the beginning, Vince, who held that against me, still holds that against me today, just turns out, won or, bettered myself. You shouldn't hate that. You didn't end up, hold up your end of the bargain, and I held up mine, and so I think it was fair for me to leave. And then, of course, I came back and did good business for him. So he has really nothing to complain about.
Well, I think this is what's great about the podcast too. Like, your Vicious Circle podcast and everything, it'll give you a chance to set things straight, because obviously with podcasts and everything, you get all different kinds of people telling all different kinds of things. So it's nice to hear, because to be honest, I haven't heard a lot of these stories that you're talking about until tonight. And, to hear your point of view is actually really, really nice. So,
the thing is, guys, sometimes the truth is boring. Because I know this guy wrote a book called Why Am I So Fat.net, and one of the things he said is, when we're dying, we'll get to a stage where we go, God, man, this is boring. Well, boring, you could probably reach out and touch perfect. And that's sort of been my lifestyle, is get up and do everything perfect all the time. I mean, boring, and then everything's pretty much perfect. But there, again, when I told you guys this story just now, that's 100% the truth. And not 1 second, one word added anything to it. I kept it to the point like the conversation was. Mm-hmm. Now, what's going to happen is if I say that, then somebody else is going to say, well, no, that's not exactly how it happened. Someone like Bruce Pritchard will say that this incident happened in another city because he doesn't know anything. And that's another thing I'm going to do. I'm going to bring some of these people in their podcast, their statements, to bring some facts to them. So I'm going to help people tell the truth. And that's one of the things I really look forward to do.
Yeah, we appreciate it, Sid. Thank you, for sharing your stories too with us.
Well, to you guys is, again, we joke a little bit about you vomiting, not knowing the stories. That is a little bit scary for me. But now, what's more scary is that, I think I talked to you guys or someone else, is that, what, the information is out there for you guys to pick up on, and then maybe where you guys don't get blinded by, the big lights of TV and stuff. You can look at results of the house shows. Everybody looks at the ratings, but sometimes the ratings are misleading. When we were beating WCW was beating WWF ratings, we were still outdrawing them 100 to 1, maybe 1,000 to 1 sometimes. but again, ratings can be misleading. Also, when you see that TV and everything looks good, and you look at the results in the houses, they go, "Wow, there's no one there. There were anybody at the TV, so they had to bring everybody to one side where it looked like people were there."
Yeah,
that gives you the guys that can't be there every night, or like you guys are learning things as you go along. Those are things that can give you a little insight for yourselves. Go, well, they're pushing this guy, but man, nothing really happens. So what they're saying about him online isn't really that true. Like I go back to this sort of funny that Dr. Moore kid, he works really hard walking to the ring and spewing slobber from his mouthpiece, but that doesn't sell tickets. He's flexible and he does that in his intro. But man, I just don't know.
Another person that really was somewhat controversial during his time in the WWF, WWE was Shawn Michaels. And you worked with Shawn Michaels a lot. He's regarded as one of the best of all time. What were your thoughts? I know that a lot of people had said that he wasn't always easy to deal with. What were your run-ins with Shawn like?
It was never a day that was not easy to work with Shawn. Now, I've said this story, and it's not like I'm picking on Brett, but this is one I can go back to, and I seem to go back to it all the time, is that, when Brett came in back on that, I guess his new contract, and I guess I didn't know this, but he says in interviews that he had creative control. And if he did have that, then I would understand why he would say things like this. But I feel like some of the first three-way matches, triple threat matches that came out was me, Brett, and Shawn. And I remember Brett sort of pulling the Ultimate Warrior when Shawn asked him about doing a spot. I was like, well, I don't know if that's good for Brett to hit me hard. And I was thinking, no, this isn't fucking happening again. And then so, Shawn just looked at me, and I looked at him, and we go, okay, we remember the things me and him did, and we pretty much went out there to let Brett look stupid, So now that Brett might say that about Shawn that night, but then I was there personally, and I knew that Brett was being the one hard to deal with. But I don't remember having a hard time dealing with Shawn.
We're based out of Poughkeepsie, New York, and speaking of Shawn Michaels, you also had a very historic moment at the Mid-Hudson Civic Center where you actually turned on Shawn Michaels. What can you tell us about that moment, or do you remember any other special moments from Poughkeepsie, New York?
I remember a lot of things about Poughkeepsie. Most of the things I remember are the house shows and coming out with 4 foot of snow out and a fan walking me to a car. That's what I remember the most about Poughkeepsie. But that night, I do remember, this is again where I say, I was an opportunist in the business. We go out to do that live spiel about, we knew that thing changed pretty quick too. And this is what happened. I was going to be his bodyguard and supposed to be his bodyguard for a while. But after the first night at WrestleMania, was in New Haven, Connecticut, I think it was, where they chanted my name the whole time when I was on the floor. I think they said, okay, we're fighting against the grain and I'm on the whipping post. So let's go ahead and start this deal faster than we needed to. So they, just from that pay-per-view to the next day, changed their whole mind on that. So wanted me to turn heel, which I was already heel. So wanted me turning at Shawn. So I remember what was going to happen. And then I remember Shawn said what he was going to say. And then he said about respect. And then I used that to my advantage. And I think I said something about, no, you little peaky, all you're going to give me is respect. And so that's how that's how I got over in business, is just saying what I needed to say and do what I needed to do. And Shawn was always one of those people who let me do that. And so that's why I don't have anything, I can't remember a negative moment with Shawn.
Sure. Now, you said, you remind me, I think you might have been told this at one point too, you and Steve Austin, to where you kind of had similar outfits with the leather, the black, yet you were the bad guy, but then you were also cheered up here in the Northeast. What are your thoughts about Steve Austin coming out later on after your career, kind of?
Well, this is the thing is, guys, and I'm not trying to beat this to death either, but before I got there, and when I was there before I hurt my neck and took that time off of my injury, Steve Austin was still there. He was also there, but he's wearing that fake diamond belt, and that's what he was wearing when I came back. And just, the next day I look up, he's wearing the same thing I'm wearing. Not that was anything wrong with that. But now this is the truth about this. Now, until I came back, guys, that company, I've said this, I don't know if y'all are aware of this, but people were going, months without getting paid there. So when I came back, it's the first time they had people show up to venues. So, I mean, now this is the thing, and this is the truth about our business, is that Steve Austin got over by association. So it's a lot easier to get over when the building's full. But if you're not the one putting the people out there, and he wasn't, I was, it's easy then, for him to carry it on after that. But, he's not the one that started that momentum for WWF.
That's right.
And that's all well documented by numbers that I'm sure they still hold in their records.
Yeah.
It proves, till I get back to that one pay-per-view in Vancouver, even the house shows I was taking notes that was placed on were, sporadically, and I remember one of the ones that did his place on was, and I remember Martin Merrill, when his first shows there, is that boxing gimmick. We were just a high school. So from the moment I got there, we went from high schools back to major venues, and Austin didn't do that.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing too, is, I think sometimes people remember what they want to remember, and
right.
And that's how this kind of business works. But I know we're jumping around a little bit, but I just want to. You knew it was probably coming, but I have to ask this. I remember watching the night that you in WCW you broke your leg. It was very difficult to watch, and I'm wondering, have you actually watched it? And also, that was a little, as far as I was concerned, it was a little uncharacteristic of you jumping off the top rope. You usually were more on, you're grounded. So I just didn't know how that all came about.
Well, this is what happened. First of all, I'll go into the story again. Johnny Ace or Johnny Laurinaitis said, I don't know how, but I'd been off for a couple of months from shoulder surgery. This is when the company, when they send an accountant in to take over Eric Bischoff's place, they're about to sell. That's a sure sign of it. So I guess somewhere in between my shoulder surgery, Eric Bischoff was out again, and they let Johnny Laurinaitis take over as a booker or something. And of course, this is how stupid people could be. They think that right there, of course, Scott Steiner probably took the best boot running into someone that ever took one in the business. And that's what we were playing. And Johnny wanted to do a Japanese spot with me coming off the second rope with the high knee, which I was uncomfortable with from the beginning. And even Scott was uncomfortable with it too, because we both had never done it. And I don't ever suggest, and this is a rule of thumb, to ever do anything like that on live TV for your first time. So I went back to Johnny a couple of times trying to change something so simple. And he wanted to think that was going to save the business, So instead of trying to I should have just stood my ground with the guy, but knowing that, he's not that smart, and that's not going to save anything, and that's not going to be a deal breaker. So, but I went ahead and did it anyway, and the results are what they are.
Oh, it was just painful to watch.
Yeah, the only thing I can come out of that positively, I did that on his decision making earlier in our careers. I did break his nose one time, with a clothesline. So, and I thought I was going to get a chance to break his brother's nose because they got all hot about it. And I said, well, they said something to keep people breaking noses. Someone might try to break yours. I said, well, if anyone wants to, they could try it right now. And he didn't jump up to try it.
Oh, man.
Of course, he would have to jump up, be an animal. He's so short. He'd have to jump up to try to break my nose. But I would beat the shit out of him and his brother both at the same time.
I couldn't imagine being in the locker room and having not want to start anything with you, Sid. Like, you'd be the last guy on the list to try to start anything with. But, with a lot of companies starting about, pro wrestling's in a boom period, if it ever was. With AEW, All Elite Wrestling starting, many people are questioning this move by Vince McMahon to where he recently rehired Bruce Pritchard. He brought in Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff now to kind of produce Raw and SmackDown. Do you feel that this was probably a strategic move to lock them up, as so to keep them away from the new promotion happening with AEW, or what are your thoughts with that possibly?
At first I didn't think about that till you guys asked me that the other night, right before or after you puked, or somebody else asked me that. I think there has to be. I think there has to be the what you said, the latter of the two. That it had to be a strategic move because it would have made. I would have thought it would really help that other company because it would have automatically established them their first TV out that this is almost Monday Nitro. You know what I mean? And this is a group of people that were being now. I talked to Paul Willett out of Montreal. We were talking, and I guess those two companies having pretty good success at first, but because they did without TV, and once they do TV, then the stars are going to explode like Dustin Rhodes and his brother and the other people that been released from Vince. And when we rehash somebody or refurbish, what the word is used mostly, you never get. Most of the time, I can't even think of myself other than one time as a Psycho Sid with the S-Wash, I was refurbished and did better. And the reason that wasn't because I had been held back the first time. So these guys haven't been held back, and they all were pretty much, not doing positive things at the time they were last, in the business. So I don't see where I don't hear it's already helping. I don't hear the ratings jump into where it helped them already with Eric being with that company. What the other company should have. The other company could have just been, the guys there could be already making bad decisions, saying, okay, just don't hire Eric. Let's just say hypothetically that, that Rhodes kid or whoever out here is in charge, they say Chris Jericho and stuff. But they don't want someone to come in that actually has really good ideas because then they're going to smarten this new company up to, Dustin Rhodes was gold dust because he wasn't a big money draw. And we let the other kid go because he wasn't a big money draw either. And you guys are having success because there's a need for something new right now. But I think, and a few people I've talked to, I believe the same thing. You put that product on TV, even though Vince's product is not that great, I think it'll expose them.
We've talked a lot about your career. We've talked about how you've been in WCW, WWF, and all the, early promotions. You had some historic career highlights. You were in the Four Horsemen. You were also in other, factions. I know that during your time in WCW, the big NWO was running wild. Were there any talks of you being included into the NWO or anything like that?
No, there wasn't. Honestly, I don't even. Of course, I hung out and talked to Kevin all the time. I think they realized too that NWO thing had run its course, and really, I think if I would win an NWO, it wouldn't have helped the NWO. It wouldn't hurt me. But again, for me, guys, I think when the people were smart using me, they used me as an entity by myself, not with a group of people. Like the one time I was with the $1 Million group of people with Ted DiBiase, that was sort of one of the silliest moments of my life. But I just don't see myself. But matter of fact, I had an opportunity, and if it had been anyone I would actually would have had fun doing something with been Randy Savage, and they wanted me to do the Team Madness, and I was And one of the reasons I think it's a London Blaze, but I didn't want any female attached to me like that in the business, because that to me is just doesn't look good. And then I just don't. Again, I at that point in my career, I've been pretty much a single entity in my life. I didn't see any need for change.
The internet went into kind of a frenzy a few weeks back in regards to the Raw reunion, because I believe it was being reported that you were supposed to be on the show for the event. But can you tell us what happened? Because I remember when I talked to you the other day, this is the whole point of hearing the other person's side, if you will, instead of just saying Sid didn't show up or whatnot. But what happened in regards to the whole Raw reunion with you?
Okay, well, just so happens that week, my aunt, her name is Joyce Fitz, she passed away a few years ago. She started the first AIDS clinic in the state of Florida called Comprehensive Healthcare in Melbourne, Florida / Unconditional Love. She named that because of her stage. Well, a couple of years ago, or just they had added another wing to her clinic. It's called the Joyce Goodson. I've been so busy, I hadn't had a chance to get down there. So I'd gone down to see the clinic and the new wing, and I was just so down there. When I was there, that's when they were wanting me to come to for that Raw reunion. Well, here back home, there was the hurricane going on. I couldn't really get home, come through that storm. And so when I got here, I can't remember the guy's name, a really nice guy I was talking to. And I just told him I just didn't have enough time to prepare myself for it, how I appreciated the offer. And if they needed something in the future, I'd be willing to listen to it. That's as simple, and that's the one answer.
Exactly.
But people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. Now, I heard this is what I heard. Either I guess this had to come from them, that it was a family issue. This is what bothers me. That's why I should have never said. This is why I don't like explaining myself. First of all, my aunt means more to me probably than almost any other family member in my life. And so actually, they caught me on the phone as I was taking the tour. And the only time I could take the tour of the clinic of the new wing was at lunchtime, because that's when the patients aren't there. And one of her things was giving them total privacy. So, I had that, 45 minutes to get in and get out. So they called me during that 45 minutes of touring her wing. So, again, I was trying to get off the phone and be nice at the same time, but that was the conversation. And it wasn't any more, nothing less than that. But then I hear that, their response, because I guess they advertised me before talking to me, that it was a family issue. It wasn't a family issue. It was, they should have just said it was their issue because they didn't contact me in time. If they were, like most people, maybe a week or 2 weeks, you say, I don't maybe take that trip until afterwards. Because really it was in I think the television taping was Tampa. So it wouldn't have been that far of a drive over, but I was already gone before the taping. I was already back home a few days before the film. I just couldn't get myself there that quick. So that's all they should have said is that, hey, you know what? We just should have maybe planned it better than we did. Instead of that, they put the heat to me and my family, which that really aggravates me. Yeah. Because it wasn't my aunt's fault. It wasn't her clinic's fault. It wasn't they going to see their, the clinic's fault. It was their fault for waiting to the last minute. So again, you got a simple answer, and sometimes simple just isn't fun. It's not exciting to listen to. But and that's why I've never used my family for an excuse for anything,
No, for sure. Well, it's the truth. That's what people need to hear. Sometimes they just want to make up their own stories.
This is right. And then you guys know, too, when we were trying to take the show, the other thing, other than you guys throwing up for being so stupid, I had that grandkid of mine who was giving me fits that night. And he threw it in my ear right before you guys called. So that throw-up thing just went right over to him, too.
Well, it's good. I guess it's got to feel good to you that many people wanted to see you on WWE Raw. And I'm to that point, I think that it's a matter of time before you're inducted into the Hall of Fame. It's well-deserved. But my question to you is when that day comes, whenever it comes knocking, and I'm sure you're going to ask Steve and I to do the induction, but if we're not available, who would you like to induct you into the Hall of Fame?
Guys, this is something, again, y'all haven't been around long enough. I haven't done it. I've declined the offer for the Hall of Fame. And the reason being is because I had a chance to come back after my leg break. I was still in pretty good shape to have done something and actually, trying to not create any trouble from, going back or trying to start a new beginning. I was using my attorney, who I still use, and he actually called them and tried to talk to them about me coming back. And Laurinaitis, just being a pure fucking dick, was telling him, we're not going to talk to you. We only want to talk to Sid. And he's just trying to explain to him that Sid doesn't want to get started on the wrong foot, and that way, if he has a buffer, he can't say things that he would like to say to y'all or might say. And so just that alone, not giving me a chance to close up my career, I would be ever interested in that. And that's on them. That's not on me.
Yeah.
And the fans should, the fans can, I would love to do it for the fans and things like that. But, you're not going to, get mad at me because I, maybe they use the word I stepped on them before or I'm hard to deal with or something like that. Well, if you want to take that little bit from me that I was willing to offer, and the offer was real simple, that I wanted to come back and give everything I had, and I mean everything. And really, to do that, you have to be on the whipping post to a point. And then that means beat me as many times as you can and all that too. And that's part of the business that we sign up for. So if they weren't willing to, take that from me, then I'm not willing. I don't think I'm worthy of it. I think if I could have finished my career, I think I would have been worthy. I don't want to be one of these Rock and Roll Express inductees. You know what I mean?
Yep.
To where I didn't really deserve it. So at my point, I didn't really deserve it because I didn't really get the fans what I think I should have gave them.
Now, I love talking to you tonight, Sid. A lot of great advice, and I would love to see you possibly even coaching some of the future wrestlers of tomorrow. But if you had to give any advice for anybody trying to get into the wrestling business today, what would be maybe the best advice from you?
Man, I don't know. The simple things are just, it really the simple things you hear in life in the beginning is keep your mouth shut, your ears open, just listen, and like some of the lessons I'll give you a funny one I learned in softball was I was being ragged by a team after hitting a home run, and of course so here we hit another one. I hit the second one rounding first base, trying to show off a little bit. I went to high five my coach, and the base slid out for me underneath me, and I slid and fell, and right in front of them. So they were like standing on top of me, laughing at me. So I learned from that right there. You don't laugh or brag or make fun of someone until after you've already won. You know what I mean? So in wrestling, wait till you're done with your career, before you start to make any bad decisions. And also don't do it the way I did it. Try to be more diplomatic. Because not everybody's going to be me. You know what I mean? And I think the business would be glad not to see another me, because I was hard to deal with. But, one is just, be a hard worker, work hard. And I've seen on Bison about some kids from Atlanta they were pushing him like to be a next big star. I can't remember his name right now, but do things that kid's doing. Make all your shows, be grateful, and be gracious at the same time. And, respect the locker room. And even if, I never had a beef with anybody, but there's sort of been, I guess, a built one in between me and Flair. But even with Flair, who, really everybody had probably some reason not to like the guy. But I always, greet him as, "Hey, champ, how you doing?" Give him respect. And I'm going to get out beating up an old man, right? So, just, be grateful. Like your prayer book says, sometimes let someone go in line in front of you. Tell someone they're having a good day. Say something nice to them and do those things, and maybe you'll turn out all right.
Well, we want to thank the man, the master, the ruler of the world. Sid, we cannot thank you enough for coming on tonight.
Yes, thank you.
We wish you nothing but success, and we can't wait to hear the Vicious Circle. Anything else you want to talk about before you go?
I'm just going to say real quick, I'm going to say the easy call for the World Series is going to be the Dodgers and the Astros, and I'm going to take the Astros for the World Series.
Perfect. Well, Sid, thank you so much, man. We appreciate it, and we'll get everybody, we'll put out the links for when the Vicious Circle podcast comes out. Thanks again so much.
Okay, thank you guys too.